going back, what is it about television writing that necessitated writing so late?
No, the problem is I'd work at TV all day on my TV job. Then I come home and to write a book, I wouldn't be home. I'd have to wait till the kids were asleep. It would be 11 o'clock at night, midnight that I could start. So that was for years. I started doing, I wrote a couple romantic comedies for Simon Pulse that I say I've written 10 books. If you go I mean, technically I've probably written 30, but I did books that were tie-ins for like Disney movies. People, oh, well, you used to write movies and you know how to do this, so we'll send you the screenplay to this Pirates of the Caribbean movie and write a novelization of it. And so that took creativity, but it didn't take as much because you have the character, you're adapting at that point. And so I would do that stuff at night to raise money to pay for life and kids and tuition and whatever it was. Um, so that writing had to be done at night, and I told my wife, I said, which was good for me because that's kind of anonymous writing. And since I didn't have the academic, and it's not all about academic, but I didn't train to be a novelist, and I didn't have all those years of reading as a kid that other people do to build on, that became kind of like a secret grad school for me. That I was writing these books late at night, and I was developing the muscles necessary to write a 100-page story. Okay, a 200-page story. Okay, descriptions of this. Okay, well here we want you just to make something up. Okay, and so that was, and I got to a point, and then I wrote the first 7 books that I've written. I wrote all the Frame books, all the Dead City books, and the first couple City Spies books that way, late at night on the weekend, and they were doing okay, and they were getting well received enough. And I told my wife, to go, imagine what I could do if I wasn't always so tired when I was writing them. And so now I get to find out that I'm still tired, and it's I don't know that I'm any better, but that it was, hopefully the books are getting better. Hopefully I'm getting better at doing it as I go.
So it was 12 years ago at age 44, which I know because you tweeted about it here recently. Um, you decide that you're going to start a new year with a new beginning, and you're going to launch into this. And you've already got a tremendous career. I mean, you worked on the Mickey Mouse Club, and you knew Ryan Gosling, Justin Timberlake, Britney Spears,
I
Aguilera way back when. So already a tremendously successful career. What is it that precipitates that, okay, this year I'm changing things at age 44, 12 years ago, we're doing this, and now you've done it tremendously. We're about to see book number 5 in your series.
we had 2 kids, and my oldest son was severely autistic and epileptic, and he never developed any kind of speech or communication skills. He had 10 to 15 seizures every day, and he had a really hard life. He was a great, wonderful, beautiful kid. And as he got older, he had an aide at school, but he wasn't really doing things academically, but he was still, but at a certain age, he could no longer go to school. And so we knew that was coming up. And when you have kids, you plan. You try to be responsible. When you have special needs kids, you really plan a lot. And so, years back, I sat with my wife and I said, realistically, we have to accept the fact, we have to plan for the fact that one of us needs to be home with him at all times, because he had so many seizures that you didn't have to just be with him. You had to physically be with him and hold him if you were moving, because he would fall and he could break a bone and he could cut his face, all things that happen. And even with him all the time. And I said, and realistically, even though television pays better than being a school teacher is much more reliable. So we should rely on the fact that your job is consistent. So we need to develop, for me, a job that I can do at night so that I can watch Alex throughout the day, and you can come home from school at night, or you can come home from school and you'll take over watching him and I'll work. And I mean, watch it, like we would have to lay in bed with him for 3 hours. We'd rotate every hour more or less, just to hold him because of the seizures, so he could fall asleep. And so I said, this book thing that I've been toying around with for extra money for doctors and for all this kind of stuff, maybe I can do this. If I take it seriously, maybe I can do it. Sorry, my dog. Lucy, come here. I will pet you while we're doing this. And so he said, so I said, maybe what I need to do is try to see if I could really write a book. And so, as opposed to the other books, which was, hey, James, we'll give you X amount of dollars, no royalties, if you adapt this thing. I said, sure. And so I came up with this idea about these high school kids who fight the undead in New York City. And I submitted it. And I sent it to an agent, and I sent it to Simon & Schuster because that's who I had done a lot of the work for. So I knew someone there. And both of them wrote back that they really liked the idea, but that it's not a young adult novel. I thought it was a young adult novel. They said, this is the content that you write is middle grade, but these kids in this book are too old for middle grade. So either you would have to make it content fit, and they're both kind of frank in a kind way. It's like, we don't know if that's the writing that you're really meant to do, or you're going to have to make their ages fit. And I had already spent a lot of time working on this. I thought, okay, well, okay, I appreciative. And this was like in summer. And I didn't have full faith in it. So I would toy with it every now and then. But the need was still there for me to find this new career. And so, like in November, I realized, well, I'm close. And so I finished adapting I only sent them 7 chapters, 7 chapters, to be middle grade instead of young adult. And I thought, well, they won't even remember. It's been so long. I've missed the chance. And it was December. I said, I know what I'll do. I'll wait a week, and I'll send it, and I'll make it seem like it was purposely sending it on New Year's as a good luck thing for all of us. Like, here's it. So I wrote in the email, here's our thing to start the new year. This you may not remember, but you liked it, and hopefully now you really like it. And in the year, and both the agent and the editor responded within 24 hours of each other a few weeks later that they absolutely wanted to do it. And so that was now becoming the thing. So I'll get this and I'll get this, and when I have to quit my TV job, I'll have a career. As it happened, our son passed away about 4 years into that, and it's obviously devastating. He died. So we had every reason to think he was going to live to a very old age, and yes, he had a lot of problems, but he was an amazing kid and loving the light of our life, and so I couldn't write for a while. The writing part of me was just every part of me was turned off, and eventually I have to keep going with the story. And oddly, I found that in writing these books, it kept part of him alive. It was like he's the reason for the books in the first place, and he's imbued in it. Him and my other son. My other son's amazing, but it was the and no, I'm going to keep writing these, even though I don't have to for the reason I thought I have to. I have to for another reason, and so they become my ongoing testament to my amazing son Alex. And hopefully the books do well and reach people. And every now and then I'll get letters from people, emails and calls from people, parents at children's hospitals, and they talk about, your book has really been important to us as my daughter goes through chemotherapy, or as my son is going through this treatment, because we're in a hospital room, we can't go anywhere, and this has happened multiple times, which is amazing to me. And we read the book as a family, and in an area where we don't have a lot of joy, this is bringing us joy. And all I can think of are all the hours I've spent in children's hospitals or hospitals. And I feel like, all right, Alex, you are helping out more and more.
Of course, Kat is neurodivergent. Is
Yeah.
that a part of trying to
Yes.
express and bring acceptance to people?
Yeah. My other son is also neurodivergent. My other son is on the spectrum-ish, and that really is a lot for him. You know, it was all my books actually have featured a character like that. The Framed books, the main character Florian looks at the world differently. And in the Dead City books, the main character, actually not the main character, a side character named after my son, has that trait. And what I really wanted to tap into, because I saw it firsthand, was looking at the world differently is not a bad thing, especially when when you at all. I mean, it's a gift that has a lot of hard things you have to work through, but it's great in problem solving. And so tapping into that, I think if I've heard them say it's not the case, but if you see the Sherlock, the Benedict Cumberbatch Sherlock, he seems to be on the spectrum. It's like if a kid can read that, and I've had kids with Asperger's write to me about, I read this book and I felt like that's me, and it's like it's such a great feeling for me. But it's I want to empower kids to use their brains, their friendship, their creativity. That's really at the heart of all these books, and that's all the brains and all the different types of creativity. And so so that ties in. All the characters in the books that I write are based on me, my kids, my wife, our friends, people I know, not directly anyone, but more like bits and pieces of everyone. Let's put these three together here, and let's put these three together there. And it really is a really interesting way to appreciate the people around you if you try to get in their head a little bit. And you're like, oh, okay, if it's true of this character, then I should probably be a little more sensitive to it, person to person, because now I realize by thinking this way that it's a different way of seeing the world. That makes sense now. I don't know if that makes sense the way I explain it, but yeah, it does transfer onto the page for me.